Welcome to Shamanic Voices, a podcast aimed at bringing our ancient, indigenous Nordic wisdom traditions and perspectives, bringing these to bear on the challenges that we face in our modern world. I am your host, Georg, and we will often be joined by co-hosts, Laurie as our producer, and you can find our bi-monthly episodes on most major platforms. And if you enjoy this and like to read as well, please look up our blog with dozens of articles on health-related topics at www.teutonichealing.com. And now, let's get on with our show. Well, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are listening to us. This is Georg and Laurie interviewing Sonali. We're speaking here about, the sort of things we talk about on Shamanic Voices, the weird, the odd, the unusual, but not necessarily so strange. A lot of times it's just something that doesn't catch up with our awareness, or we hear about it and we don't know what to think about it. Well, today's topic's a continuation of our last very informative and challenging conversation with Sonali. That is about what some people call gang stalking, and what we otherwise refer to as life as a targeted individual. So, Sonali, just for people that may have missed our last broadcast, would you mind just bringing us up to date on what it means to be a targeted individual, and then we can get into some of your specific experiences?
Yes, being a targeted individual is being someone who is stalked in person and online by people you may or may not even know, because they can hire it done these days. There are companies that specialize in mentally, physically, financially breaking people down, breaking corporations down, breaking organizations down, whistleblowers, and maybe any move towards greater autonomy in corporations can be handled that way, or any splinter groups, or any individual who is reporting corruption of any kind. That has become a theme. So as you explore, you'll find out that there are hundreds of thousands of people who have experienced this over the last 2 or 3 decades. And it's only just starting to hit the mainstream. And that it has been very reassuring to me that I'm not imagining this. This is happening to a whole bunch of people. Doesn't matter what country it is, doesn't matter who's doing the stalking, the basic components are the same. They get in touch with your family, your workplace, they start harassing your kids, they kill off pets, they mess with your bank account. In my case, my dad's bank account was drained to zero, and he lived in India. And here in the US, they paid off someone, I don't know who that was, but he flashed a badge and had a warrant to empty out my safety deposit box in Austin, Texas at Wells Fargo. This was after I had told them I was being stalked by cops in India as well as here in the US. The dirty cops in India had gotten in touch with a dirty cop here in the US, and he had paid him off to harass me. But these people anyway managed to flash a badge, empty out all the contents of my safety deposit box, which was my entire inheritance of 22-karat gold jewelry from my parents, as well as my aunt, who had left her jewelry to my daughter because she had no kids and no grandkids. And I've asked them to return it, and they've been saying no.
Now, I'm thinking, Sonali, that in American jurisprudence and banking regulations, somebody simply going in and flashing a badge wouldn't work. You'd literally have to be a level of corruption a little bit beyond that. You would actually have to have a court order to open somebody's bank box.
Allegedly, they had put me on a watch list of some kind, like a terror watch list perhaps, or a bank fraud watch list. of some kind, and they had fake FISA or FISA court papers,
Okay. I
not just
support.
for, yes, not just for
Mm.
me, but for a whole bunch of people who worked with me, apparently. I haven't seen them, but that's the word going around. And you,
Financial Intelligence and Surveillance Act. I think that's what FISA stands for. Is
I
that
believe
correct?
so, yes.
Right.
And this guy would have had to fly across the country to come and do this. So they are thinking about processing this as a RICO charge, in addition to everything else. And I've
Mm.
been telling them this is an American obeying orders from a foreign government or mafia. You could always apply the Espionage Act. That's 20 years right there.
Well,
That's even,
you're saying that this dirty American cop was hired by dirty Indian cops. What agency or department did this American cop work for? Did you ever find out?
at that time, I'm told he worked for the FBI. And it was a message from my stalker in India who had told my dad that this guy had come to New Delhi. He went and met him. He drove him around, took him to a lot of different offices, and introduced him to a bunch of different people. And reportedly, they really liked him in India. And he came back from India and sent me a message on Facebook as a spoof. They gave me money. I took it because they're the mafia. If I refused it, they would have killed me.
Do you think their goal is to harass you, or are they trying to control something?
They are trying to control paperwork that would have been passing through the various offices of the FBI and CIA, Wells Fargo, and Google, Accenture, because, and at the Indian end, they controlled it by simply transferring people out of their jobs. And they were trying to micromanage it here with bribes, I suppose, or exchanged favors. I don't know what that end of it looks like. That has been investigated for several years now, so I'm pretty sure there are people who worked it out, but I haven't figured out the details yet. And since I have not been asked to testify, I haven't seen any paperwork. And the two times that I was called to court, they stole my mail, so I never showed up. So the money that was supposed to come to me never came to me. Apparently, a check had been mailed to me, but then again, they stole my mail. So I never received the check.
You mean they misspelled your name? Is that what you're saying?
One time, the stalkers gave the courts the wrong address or an address that would divert to them. So I am not receiving any mail from the courts, neither from the Indian courts nor from the US courts.
And I think Lori's point makes very good sense. It's like, okay, if I'm some international criminal organization, what do I get out of causing all this grief to you? Is this some huge amount that was in your box? I mean, these people at that level, my goodness, they can steal millions with the click of a computer key
Yeah.
just by committing mass fraud. They don't need
Yes.
to go to an individual's bank box, you know?
My neighbor who barely knew me walked up to me one day and she said something like, "Do you know so and so who lives in such and such apartment? Why don't you go to her and get life insurance for you and your children?" My kids were like 13 and 15 at that time. And I'm like, I already have insurance. Why do I need insurance for my children? She said, no, it's a very good thing. You should do it.
Do you think
And
do you think that was a veiled warning?
no, there was this woman who used to live in my building who used to sell insurance.
Oh,
And
okay,
she started doing the bidding of the stalker.
okay.
So when she used to go back and forth from Mexico, and I suppose she had done it enough times where I think she got picked up because she wasn't able to come back at some point. That's what this other lady who had told me to go to her and buy insurance told me, that she just can't come back anymore. So
Okay.
I suppose the red flags went up because she'd just done it too many times.
Now, about when did this happen when they cleaned out your safety deposit box?
This happened right after I moved to Austin.
Okay, now you first
Sorry,
lived in,
no, no, no. No, this happened right after I moved to Indy from Austin, which was 2018.
okay, now before that, let's see if I understand this correctly from our last chat, you were in Atlanta, then Austin, and then Indianapolis, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure we got that right.
There are several ways of looking at this issue. I would like to begin with an ask of all your listeners. The ask is that we need to give up tribalism. We need to dehyphenate. I no longer consider myself an Indian American. I just think of myself as an American because what's happening is loyalties are getting divided, and that's creating a lot of emotional confusion in people. It's I'm a Democrat. How can I do something that the Republicans are saying is good? Or I'm a Russian American. How can I do something that Russians are not agreeing with? That kind of thing is happening a lot. And it tears you up on the inside when you first decide to dehyphenate. So I decided that I would just celebrate my culture through music and food, and I would forget about the first 24 years that I deeply loved India, and the next 20 years where I used to go to schools and demonstrate Indian music, and I had friends who used to demonstrate Vedic math, and I'd have displays of Indian arts and craft, with YouTube videos of Indian dance playing. I enrolled my daughter in dance. She learned Indian classical dance for about 6 years. It's I had to completely tear myself away from my love of my culture, which was really, really difficult. And I had to do it because if I so much as watch a Hindi movie, they think I'm in their camp. They're like, oh, we got full control. So because they are idiots, they misread my internet activity.
Oh,
They have eye tracking installed they cloned my phone and somehow they've managed to install eye tracking devices or software so they can tell how long my eyes linger on a particular subject, a particular face, object, word. They can count how many times I've listened to the same song over and over. And my original plan for my life was to become a classical musician. I studied Indian classical music for 14 years.
wow.
I still love it. So I go back and listen to Indian music at least once a week, at least. And they report that to the upline as, hey, she's under our full control. And that level of stupidity is something I have to work through on a daily basis.
I guess people's response to their ethnicity has changed a lot over time. I remember my grandparents, who didn't really get along with each other that well, if they were going to have an argument in public or where somebody might overhear, it was always in English. But if they got, or privately, it was either in German or Russian or Belarus. They all spoke all three of those. So it was kind of funny to hear them switch instantly. I was remember helping them carry their groceries into their apartment one time in Pennsylvania and hearing the switch as we came in. I went, what? Yeah, because they were so in that generation who came over after the revolution, they were so eager to assimilate. They wanted to
Yes.
deny all, in fact, changing names from Orawa to Ro, or changing the name from Kontarovish to Carter, stuff like that was done all the time. Uh,
Yes.
just so you wouldn't seem weird. You wouldn't see, or so people could pronounce your name. I know it's just a very different mentality, and it didn't feel like it threatened anybody to hold on to it. You were just trying to, and above all, you didn't want your kids or grandkids not to fit in, not to understand the customs, not to be able to speak the language like a native. So you made it a point that in the house, most of the time, 90%, we're going to speak. Well, let's speak a little of the other. We're mainly going to speak the language you have to speak out there at school or on the
Yeah.
job. It's interesting to hear you say that, though, the concern about feeling an inner divide about that. So they're bothering you now. As I recall, you at some point are working for Google. You had very skilled jobs working in editing, working in literature for Google, correct?
No, I was doing content analysis.
Okay, I'm calling it literature, calling it content, right?
Yeah. And the other thing I would like to say is everybody in the intelligence world has figured it out that America is under gray zone attacks on a daily basis and has been for the last 20 years. But if you're not familiar with it, I think it's time to just take the blinders off
Okay,
and
what kind of attack again are you saying?
gray zone.
Gray zone, right?
Yes. It's the attack on the electrical grids, it's the attack on the banks,
Okay.
that kind of thing, because they did trace some amount of hacking into banks through my IP address. Because when I went to the bank to cash a check, they said that the manager wanted to speak to me. And the manager said, you know why this is, he didn't say, go into great detail about the hacking issue. He just said, have you any idea why this is happening to you? You must have given your address out on maybe in a resume or something. Wrong people got hold of it. They had your email, they had your address, and then they started doing this.
So it sounds
But
like the targeted individual, they can use your bank accounts, they can use your identity to do nefarious things that you don't know anything about.
yes. And another thing that uh, this person who's the Russian who's been talking me, who's an intelligence expert, one of the messages he sent me was he has studied all the 36 ways in which the CIA can kill a person, and he's going to try them on me. And he has mastered um, what is it called? Costume. Uh, I forget what he said. He has mastered masks and costumes and makeup, and he can have a company create a face mask and body pads to make someone look just like me, have them commit a crime in my name, and get hair from my hairdresser, plant it on the scene, and implicate me in any crime he feels like. This was happening December of 2017 and early 2018. Accenture, Google, FBI, and CIA, and the US military should all have a copy of my work feed. So this is documented. Late 2017 to early 2018, mid
Well,
2018.
let's be specific, Sonali. What sort of crime were they trying to implicate you in?
He was just, at that point, he was just terrorizing me. And he sent me a message saying that it just stayed, it didn't say his name, it didn't say when. It was just one of those Facebook spoofs they plant on my feed. And it read, I went to Russia and there were hundreds of pictures.
Wow.
It's
So
so they want to.
When you had not been in Russia.
yes, but way back 45, 50 years ago, when my dad used to work with some Russian people who were from the KGB, but of course they wouldn't say they were KGB. But my dad used to always tell his friend, you know, you look like a cop, you sound like a cop. Why don't you just say you KGB? So his friend would say, no, I'm not. Of course I'm not. And you laugh it off. But they
Well, it
all
sounds
want,
like they wanted to keep you living in fear.
yes. And because they figured that I had multiple layers of contacts with the people they wish to terrorize. So my dad was still living then. He had contacts in the Indian police, Indian military, and in the KGB. So this was most likely because they did try to recruit my dad, and my dad refused. So they were thinking, oh, they know her dad, so if we pick her, we get to terrorize two sets of people, the Russians as well as the Indians. And I think that's why I got picked. And in the meantime, these people are very, very heavy on astrology and psychic readings and palmistry and stuff. They talked to several psychics and astrologers, as the Indians had when they first started stalking me. And they came back and said that there's a prophecy about me, that I will give birth to a Messiah. So I would have to have a baby with whoever they pick. And they would be picking two people for me to have a baby with because one of them has a birth defect and the other man doesn't. So they have identified two men whose DNA will be used along with mine, and that I would have to work with a lady who worked at CRISPR. I didn't know what CRISPR was.
The gene editing software. Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked it up and I was like, oh, that's in California. So this terrorism is not coming from Russia, it's coming from California. So this must be someone who's infiltrated Google. So that's how that light bulb went off, that they've infiltrated Google. And then they said that they asked psychics who do past birth readings, and they found out that I used to be Larry Page's sister in a previous lifetime. And they found out apparently that I was Putin's mom in another lifetime. And they said, we know you're Larry Page's sister. You have to stop protecting him. You are too maternal. Protect other people, but you have to stop protecting.
Now you're speaking of
Larry.
Larry Page, one of the co-founders of Google. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Okay.
yeah.
And who is the other person that you said you were related to in a past life?
They said I was Vladimir Putin's mom in another past life.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So this whole time, I am laughing so hard that I'm like, these people are basically batshit crazy.
It would sound that way, yes.
And this happened in 2018 and 2019, and it's 2025, and they're still holding on to that. They have accused me of causing Prigozhin to fail in his attempt at the coup. They said, because you protected Putin, Prigozhin failed. And I suppose by extension, they even blame me for him being dead. And they said, you can, you can protect they were doing a trade. They said, you can protect anybody you want except Larry Page. He is ours. If Larry's parents hadn't moved to the US, he would have been struggling along with the rest of us because his parents moved. Today, he is a famous billionaire, or he would be exactly like us, struggling just like us.
Now, where
And
did
then
he move here from? Did he move here from Israel?
I don't know.
because I think Sergey Brin was a displaced Russian who was then in Israel and then moved to the US. And I think it was the same way with Page. His name was not originally Page. I don't recall what it was. Yeah.
And they proceeded to share stylized naked pictures of Larry's mom, and they called her a whore. And I looked her up, and I think she and her husband taught computer science. Prior to that, she had worked in the KGB, and then they picked up and left, and they raised the kids here. And Larry went on to become who he is. And when I started, I'm not really psychic, but I have a little bit of psychic ability, which opened up when I got attacked. And I'm mostly clairaudient. So I could hear them, I could hear the stalker yelling at people at Google. And somebody put him in his place. I heard that and I reported it. And they said, "Oh my God, you heard that? You're a clairaudient." By that time, I'd worked out I was. So I was like, oh, I got that right. I can't believe it because this faculty just opened up. So I wasn't very sure.
So they got your bank account.
Yes,
They've been able to maybe use your online accounts to do hacking of one sort or the other, where
yes.
they get caught in it. What else is the payoff for them? Why do they bother to do this to you?
Because they are crazy and they're still holding on to their belief that I, at 59, I'm going to give birth to a miracle baby that they want.
Whoa.
They are still sending me those messages about how they have identified the two males whose DNA will be used along with mine. And to that end, I'm 59. I went through menopause a few years ago. They're zapping my ovaries, which is painful. And they're
Well,
saying no.
let's go into that. Yeah, I've read UFO accounts of a younger woman being abducted and the humans, not grays, actual humans, who are in some sort of cult, very well-dressed guys driving black Mercedes and so on, a lot of money, a lot of sophistication, putting some sort of almost like a suction device over where the ovaries are and having some way that this very advanced technology actually extracts eggs, and even telling her that they were doing that. Now, I've taken that testimony as a healer with a person who had suffered through that and didn't remember it consciously. And under hypnosis by a very skilled clinical hypnotherapist, she recounted that, and there was no leading it. There was absolutely no, it's just like, what happened between this hour and that hour on such and such a day when you had missing time? And she filled in the whole story. It wasn't anybody prompting her. It was so bizarre, it was really hard to believe. Is it some technology like that they use, or how do they go about doing this?
What they told me was that they will zap my ovaries so that I produce more eggs. And then they will create a like an emergency heart palpitation kind of a thing. So I end up going to the emergency room.
Okay.
And once I'm in there, they will have their people do their paperwork, whisk me away to extract the eggs, and I will go back home having 7 or 8 eggs extracted.
Because in infertility research and medicine, that's a pretty big deal, even when they have a volunteer egg donor, probably usually being paid by an older mom who looks a lot like her, and her eggs are no longer viable. So she finds a young woman who's maybe she's in graduate school, she's desperately needs some money. The one young woman gets like $20,000. It's supposed to be quite an ordeal to, I remember reading about this, to give up the eggs. So they're just going to walk you in the hospital, get the eggs, and take you right back out like it's not a problem for you, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I personally believe that the decision maker has money and has his talents in everybody's
But these people,
jugular.
these evil people behind this are basing this entirely on, if I understand you correctly, and if not, please correct me so our listeners Well, understand they're basing this entirely on what astrologers or other psychics on their end say about you. Is this correct?
That's their cover story.
Okay, now what's the real story in your opinion?
In my opinion, there are two kinds of people in this mix, the batshit crazy and the highly manipulative. The batshit crazy ones might be believing this hoax thing about how I'm Putin's mom and Larry's sister. And the manipulative ones simply want to steal my intellectual property, and they want to make me go away because I am refusing to be the face of their fraudulent project. Because in 2018, they started sending me a whole bunch of reading material on Theranos. Theranos was that one drop solves it all box where you could drop off, at any drugstore, one drop of your blood, and they would be able to run 84, 85 tests and tell you how you're doing. That was supposed to be revolutionary for everyday people, like children who are diabetic.
Now,
People,
wasn't this a company that was in the San Francisco Bay Area run by a woman, and it took
yes,
a hell of a lot of money? I mean, a massive amount of money. Then it turned out to be a scam, or so it was said, and the federal authorities arrested her for stock fraud and all. Am I thinking the same company? Yeah. Okay. Well,
and they
was that test ever put out there? Did anybody actually benefit from taking that test?
they did roll it out. I think it was Walgreens or CVS, one of them, and they were getting so many errors. I think they got sued, and then very quickly it was shut down. So more damage wasn't done. But for some reason, my work feed was flooded with articles on Theranos. And my Facebook feed was about how moonshiners would wear um, shoes to walk through the snow into a building, drop off the loot, and walk backwards through the snow in the same footprint, so nobody knew that they had come and left. So they were pretty much telling me in a variety of ways that they were going to do what Theranos had done, but smarter, wiser, much more calculated. They knew
So,
all the
so,
ways in which Theranos had failed, and they were going to eliminate every failure.
so they refined the technology and they were going to use it on your blood to find out more.
No. This is they were going to use the business model, not the technology.
Okay.
So they knew who they needed for credibility. Because remember, I told you their job description was it'll be work, publishing, and sex. So they were going around San Francisco identifying people they wanted compromat on. And at that time, they sent me about names of 5 or 6 different men who were on that list. And when I looked at the list, I figured that this was the exact cast of characters they needed to endorse them.
Now, what was the common element of these 4 or 5 men that they got compromising material, compromat in Russian on?
High government ranking,
Okay.
connection to Russia, living in San Francisco, and I completely refused. People saw it. There were, by that time, because I had also complained to the then vice president's office, reportedly Secret Service and NSA, everyone had gotten involved. So they also have psychics because the Russians were using about a group of 40 psychics. The Indians were using psychics all of the CIA military types in the US, they're like, hey, we're using psychics too. So it was like a war game between three groups of psychics. So the psychics in this group, in the American group, were like, don't even think about it. You will not take this job because this is what we are seeing.
Now, what was the job supposed to consist of? Pulling
The
these
last
guys.
message they sent me was last week. They said, this new job is all yours. You had competition, but the competition has been eliminated. The time has come for you to travel the world, talk about your life, and be happy. So they are running a,
That sounds like a pretty good job, Sonali. I'll take it.
I know, but
Yeah.
it involves creating compromat with these 16 men they've identified
Well, without the compromise, yeah.
and lying about the results. The results aren't there. So I would be doing a Theranos, I'd be doing an Elizabeth Holmes if I took the job.
Okay.
And that is the whole idea. What they told me was they have a kitty of $780 million that need to be laundered.
Wow.
But I would have to go around the world one time, tell the whole world what a beautiful product this is and how it's benefited my life. And I would have to create compromat with as many as possible from this list of 17. And then I would have to very quietly disappear to a very cold country and possibly never return.
Okay. So they give you an apartment in Murmansk or Vladivostok.
Huh, exactly.
So what sort of, I mean, how would you go about getting the compromise with them? I mean, people that rich, just having a fling with them is not going to mean anything. You'd have to have some
Exactly.
financial misdealings or something like that on them.
They believe that having a sex tape solves a lot of problems. I think it's BS because my message to all the people working at Google and being terrorized by the same people is just say, so what? Just because if they don't, they will lose Alphabet, they will lose Google, they will lose DeepMind. These people have been telling me what they want is DeepMind.
Okay, which is Google's AI that
Yes,
was used to play chess and to play the game of Go against a famous
yes,
Korean master. Okay.
that's the one. They
Yeah.
said they want full control of DeepMind, and DeepMind will become completely autonomous. That's what they told me.
So they don't
So
want to use it for playing computer games or playing board games. They want to use it for warfare. Ooh,
yes.
that's sneaky. That's smart. So who is this they? Who is it that
Who-
wants this?
Whoever is sending me those anonymous messages is the person who sent me the message about we will get complete control over DeepMind and DeepMind will become entirely autonomous. It will no
Okay.
longer obey Alphabet.
Now, just to help put this into perspective, we're now speaking in the, I guess, late summer, early autumn of 2025. When is the last time you heard from this bunch of creeps that's been bothering you all these years?
I hear from them a little bit less now, like once every 3 or 4 weeks. But earlier, they used to flood my feed with total BS about polyamory and whatever their psychic was telling them about how I'm going to give birth to a magical baby in my 60s or my 70s,
Wow.
and how I am a chosen one, and how they are moving to Israel. They're not going to stick around here. They're just going to make their money and move. So I'm like, oh, if they're going to Israel, you better tell the Israeli government. They'll go there and do the same thing. Don't let them come in.
So
So
when we back up and look at all of these things they've told you, is it possible that, and maybe in your case, maybe not, but that at least some of the time when people are being gang stalked or being targeted individuals, that they are doing this like having a rat in a maze, like you're a gigantic laboratory experiment for them.
Yes,
Some of this sounds kind of irrational. Like if I'm some evil genius, I'm going to pick some woman who's 25 to get those eggs rather than somebody 59. Yeah, no offense. I don't have anything against women 59, but you know what I'm saying? If biologically, it's
yes.
makes much more sense to do that.
Which is why they're after my daughter, who's 25.
Ah, that would make sense. So they're after a specific set of genes. Okay.
It sounds like they
They-
want to keep you in a constant state of chaos, so you're
Yes.
confused. And then in the event that they decide the time is right to use you, they can say, "Hey, do you want it all to end? Just push this button." And
That's
and then you're supposed to be compliant.
that's exactly the message I got last week. Death threats are almost daily thing, so I have stopped seeing them. I try to report them as often as I can, but they are not happy with the way the US government has uh, in the beginning they found a lot of success because they had compromised on several people. But now that everyone's wised up, there's no more compromise. So now people are standing up to them and they can't handle it.
Is your daughter aware of this plot and
I
aware
have
that
told
she
her,
might be the next target? Yeah.
I have told her that I don't know if she believes me. My kids, at least the younger two, think I am maybe senile and imagining things. The older one has suffered at their hands. So the oldest knows I'm not bullshitting, I'm not imagining it.
Okay.
The younger two, like my middle child, I asked my middle child, so what if my middle child likes to say that I really need to move into an old people's home because I've completely lost my mind? I'm like, wait, if this is proven in court that everything I'm telling you is true, what will you do? She had some typical, Gen Z thing to say, which I can't repeat over here.
Okay.
So this one is slowly warming up to the idea that I might be right. But I think the youngest definitely thinks I'm crazy.
Well, if let's say that you had a neighbor move in next to you, and unbeknownst to you or her, you get to know her, and you're playing cards with her, you're having tea some afternoon, and she lets something slip, and you two work out pretty quickly that even though the two groups of evil people don't know each other, you're both victims of gang stalking. You're both victims of being targeted individuals. What would your advice be to that lady who became your neighbor now and whom you trust? How would you, let's say she's 40 and she's in the middle of an important career. Maybe she's an architect, maybe she's an attorney. What would you tell her?
I would ask her to put in a recorder where she records her screens and saves them, and to have a microphone or a camera running every time she's like self-surveillance of your devices and your person 24/7. Because what happened was they reported me as a terrorist and they reported me for bank fraud. They started an investigation using American agencies. So I was under surveillance 24/7. And
Now,
when
when was this that you were under surveillance and under suspicion?
apparently for a very long time, they didn't tell me when exactly it began. I suspect it began in 2018. So now there were people from the CIA, military, Google, everybody looking at the same thing. They're looking at um, my internet usage, and they're looking at where I am physically. So if the crime was committed 45 miles from here, even if they found a hair and a blood sample, on the victim. But if they can see the cameras and see I was here, I was logged in playing Scrabble or playing Wordle or Sudoku, because that's what I do to distract myself. I have played Scrabble for about 18 hours on occasion just to keep my mind free of worry. That's been my coping mechanism.
Sure.
Or I'll just listen to music loud to drive the rage and sadness and fear out of my mind. So and they called me a drug addict and alcoholic. And they checked my grocery store receipts, which is like 4 bottles of wine in a 12-month period for the last 15 years or 20 years, no drug use. So they knew that whatever they had planted on my health records was all fake. That piqued the interest of a lot of people, because since I had already said to several cops, my dad, just like you, is a cop, just like you, is a veteran, they tried to recruit him, and this is what he told me, that there is this mafioso who's attacking American companies and American people. It's all about the money. Don't worry about what they're saying. It's all about the money.
This is a different view of being gang stalked or targeted individual. Usually people, like I've looked at some of the sites from the UK or Europe about people who are reporting this, and they always say it's the government. You're saying, well, it's the government and it's the mafia. Now, is the Indian mafia the same mafia we think about in this country, or they started from Sicily and then Italy, and now we also talk about the Russian mafia? We use it just to refer to any kind of organized crime, the Mexican mafia, etc. Is this a homegrown mafia just from India that's been there for a long time?
I don't know enough about it, but I do know this much, that I don't think the Italian mafia is involved. I think it's homegrown Indian criminal rings that coalesced around New Delhi, and they recruited people in the government from the army, police, and that's how their influence grew so much. I remember in the 80s, my dad started telling me that don't get into government service. It's not what it used to be. When I joined it, it was a really good job to have, but you would be much better off working in the private sector, because what's happening is that when any local gunda, like let's say he is a graduate student, but he has a bit of a criminal history for maybe inciting violence or sloganeering or whatever it might be, that same boy in about 10 years would have 5 felonies involving battery, rape, theft, robbery. And in order to get out of his jail sentence, he would very quickly join politics. And once you have friends in high places, you become untouchable.
So you're saying they actually try to set up their own candidates who have a pretty extensive criminal record, which then they control the compromised material on. They know all the specifics of the crime. So if the person ever gets out of line, they can have them arrested, a scandal, have them impeached, whatever it is under the Indian Constitution. Okay.
Yes. So that was my dad's analysis of where the problem began, where it's going. And he used to say, we in the force are simply holding up a crumbling wall. This wall is going to come down.
The wall of, that will allow in wide scale official corruption. That's what he's talking
Yeah.
about. Okay.
And this was in the late 80s when I was in college. And then it turned out that I never really found a career. I was raising children and I stayed home. And when I finally did get to work, the same mafia that he had predicted in the late 80s found me in the late 2010s. And I'm like, this is just not going to be good for me. So I was very hopeful that the US system is not as greasy with money, but it turns out that they were using the rupees and the rubles oil the system here because they had identified big fish. What had happened was, in the meantime, US banks were doing all of the data work in India. Their customer service and data was paperwork was entirely happening in India.
They were farming this out to save money on salaries.
Yes.
Is that it? Okay.
Yes. The insurance companies were doing the same. The medical companies, all billing, coding, scheduling, all done out of India. So what had happened was American, it's not just a social security numbers. They have complete control over our health records, banking, and insurance.
Wow.
So then I realized that in the same way that they're harassing me, they can harass any American. So I started telling people that you should stop being so complacent. This is not an Indian American problem. It's not because they tried to recruit my dad and my dad refused. It's not vendetta. It's a pan American problem. Pay attention to it. And then somehow or another, my stalker got in touch with the local offices that I had gone to in Austin, and they said, "Hey, we've never met you." After 6 times that I'd gone to the office and spoken to an agent, they said, "We've never met you. We can't find you in the database."
Are we talking FBI agents in
Yes.
an office?
Yes. And so I asked, I don't know if I asked them there in the office, but I did wonder if they had their databases also farmed out to India. I don't know. Because the Indian stalker knew everything I had discussed with every agent. I didn't know how that was happening. So I told the FBI guys, your phones are compromised. And they said, no, we have very, very good security. There is no way on earth that our phones are compromised. So I said, why don't you check if one of them left a listening device? Because they know the Indian stalker knew the contents of every conversation I'd had on my 6 visits to the Austin FBI office. And at this point, I started feeling like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my back. And I also had been studying, energetically studying, like I have a tree tumor around me. I knew that. They had bribed people around me, working with a neighbor, working with a cop. And I realized very quickly that Google also has a tumor around it. And those two tumors are attached.
Those what around it? What was the word you used?
Because they were telling me about what they were going to do to Google and DeepMind, I realized that they are trying to elite capture Google the same way they've captured me and other small fish who work there.
Okay.
And I had realized that these people, the owners are Russian, but they moved here when they were very young. So
Right.
I didn't know if they spoke Russian. I didn't know if they had any contacts back in Russia. But I knew that my dad's friends would probably be still in the KGB, FSB, GRU, wherever they were once the KGB broke up. So I'm like, you know what? They will probably help if Google would simply report them. Just report it and then leave it to God. Because in my opinion, Google is like God nowadays. People used to take their prayers to God and ask God to heal them. Now, if you have a problem, you go to Google, you go on WebMD and look up your symptoms. And whatever Google tells you is your prayer answered.
So you think that probably this is like a transnational organized crime group involving Russians and Indians, maybe a few Americans, and they're planning on taking over Google.
Yes,
And several of the people there, like yourself, were targeted as part of this plan.
yes.
Okay. How long
So
since you've actually worked at Google?
officially, I quit in the summer of 2018, must have been July, I think, June or July, because that's when the sexual assault happened. and went to the FBI, and they were protecting their man. So I decided to leave. But unofficially, I'm still on this project, that the side project that they had. So I'm still there. I would very much like to just exit it completely. I will not be able to endorse their project. It sounds very attractive, having a Google badge and traveling all over the world, talking about your Google project. But it is a bit of a Theranos kind of thing. They don't have the results to show. So I would be a complete hoax if I went around the world saying how wonderful it is, because it isn't.
Also, if it folded up like the last one did with the lady in the San Francisco area, you would take the rap for it, they would take the money and run and be
Yes,
laughing all the way to the bank, right?
yes.
You would be the
When
fall
this,
guy. Yeah.
yes, when this startup started in earnest in 2019, I received a message from a third party from Brin, and I'm going to hold Brin accountable for that. He was mad at these people. His exact words were, I am an oligarch. I answer to no one. You're
He is
doing
an oligarch, that's true. Yeah.
You're doing this to my company? When the time is right, I will release a berserker bear. Those were Brin's words. And I don't think Larry got involved because his mom was managing it. So he left it to his mom, like, it's okay, she can handle it. I have other things to do. So I've been like, okay, at least I have Brin on board. He knows what they're doing. And he has promised a berserker bear. I'll do my part, you do your part. And then the whole Ukraine thing started. And I realized that the people I knew back when I was a kid, they're right at the top of the food chain. And one of them offered to help. So I was really, really enthusiastic. Back up in India, back up in Russia, back up in Google. All I need is the US justice system to come through for me. So I started the process for a restraining order against their chief security officer because they were simply not firing him. I wanted him out of my internet. And I wanted to press charges because the statute of limitations had expired in Texas and in Indy, but they are still not expired in California. They tried twice to serve in papers and they couldn't. And what had happened the morning I went to court, my maps, Google Maps, as soon as I got close to downtown where the court is, it would completely mess up. The whole map would go insane. It would start spinning, and I ended up being late.
Wow.
And I realized that they can do this to anybody. They can do this to people going to an important location at an important time. They could do this on election day. All they had to do was figure out where the difference between the two parties is marginal, attack those counties, attack those precincts, and just mess up maps for the people who already registered at such and such a party. And you could change election results like that. So I reported that to Google. I hope they took that seriously. The other thing that was happening was they were attacking my car, which is a Toyota Prius. And at that time, because they had told me that I would have to create contract with certain people at Google, I was like, okay, first of all, I'm old. Okay. Most of the people who work there are 10 years younger. When they see me, they see their mom. They don't see, spring chicken, unless they're like in this guy's probably 80. I don't know. So he's making these terrible decisions because he doesn't have the ability to understand. He might see me as a spring chicken, but the people he's trying to get compromise on, they don't. They see their mom when they see me. But then he is crazy, so what do you do? So when they started attacking my Prius, I found out that they had accessed the Prius schematics at Google. Google had scrapped the project, but the paperwork, the tech was still there. They were using the self-driving car tech they illegally accessed at Google to harass me. So I asked them to report that to the cops. I'm not sure that they did, but I have requested that. Just like I requested the maps report. They should be reporting that to the cops so someone can start an investigation and fix that problem.
Okay, well, Sonali, we have kind of run out of our hour here and a little bit over. I think we got a massive detail here. We got a pretty good idea how this has gone on and what some of the prizes that they're after are like control of Google and some of its very advanced projects and how they kind of set you up as probably one of several people. How many people do you think on the inside of Google are being under the same thumb, under the same kind of harassment or targeted status that you have been under?
In Austin, they were terrorizing about 5 females and about 5 men, as far as I could tell.
Okay.
I don't know what the situation is like at San Francisco and at other satellite offices.
Oh, is Austin the headquarters? I thought it was San Francisco.
No,
I may be wrong. Okay.
San Francisco is the headquarters. That's another suggestion I've made to Google is just let the layers of management, that's a separate company. What is happening is all these companies, the same at every big tech, it's happening at state governments, it's happening in the banking industry also, I suppose. There are layers of management with layers in between embedded of um, contract workers. And there's one layer of direct hires right at the top.
Now, before we wrap this off, give me your opinion on something. Everybody's talking about, are we going to have a financial collapse this year? Is Google planning on that? Do the people around you that you're in contact with echo that? Or is this just our own fears of an unstable economy and a poorly planned economy?
As far as I can tell, all of the management and the owners are being held hostage by the same people
Wow.
because they have been showing off over the years about how they set fire to one of Larry Page's homes.
Oh, that will get your attention. Yeah.
Yes. And how 23andMe is also a target, and how Larry's first wife died and her son died. That's how it started. They started with, you used to be Larry's sister, stop protecting him. You're too maternal. You were a sister in a different life. In this life, you're not. And that got my attention.
Understood. Well, listen, I would love to pick up if you're up for a third session. We're right up to the present time. You can go into some of the ramifications of this going forward. And above all, I think maybe a thing that our listeners would enjoy hearing about next time is how in the hell you have managed to remain sane in the middle of all this. I think that's something anybody listening to this would wonder. If I had to go through what you've been through, I'd be stark raving mad. So what's kept you together? What's kept you sane? How have you managed to raise your kids under these circumstances? These are things we might want to explore. Lori, how about you? Any other big questions that pop up in your mind as you listen to this interview?
Yeah, well, one coping skill I'm wondering if it would even help is if you just went off the grid and didn't use technology. Would that help, or would they just find some other way to get to you?
Oh, in 2019, when I realized that I had friends in India and Russia and the US, I sort of took it on as a challenge, as a personal challenge. So I have seen it through to a point where Larry and Sergey are both completely aware that they are on the menu. Now that they have worked it out, my request to them is that they push hard. And if these guys are bribing people, so can Larry and Sergey. They have the money for it, right? If the dirty guys can bribe the justice system, so can Larry and Sergey. They can give them twice as much. So I'm at that. My message to Google is push back 1000%.
Or just pay me off and I'll go away. Give me $10 million. I'll retire and I won't be a problem for you any longer, right? Have you thought of that one?
I've been asking for that for years, but the whole problem is that the person behind it has married himself to the prophecy that I'm going to produce the next prophet and he has to be one of the dads.
Well, tell him you've got to be retired before you produce the profit and you have to be in a nice 3-story house on a pleasant seashore, and then we can talk about the profit. Okay. Maybe that would work. A good bargaining point. Sonali, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. And let's pick this up again. Try to remember where we're at so we can come in kind of at the same point.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, you take care. Folks, this has been another episode of Shamanic Voices, brought to you by Georg and Lori, and featuring Sonali Gurpur. A fascinating account of what it's like from the inside, being a targeted individual, gang stalked individual, however you want to put it. It's a whole layer of life. If you go look it up online, you will find a lot of videos about it. We're going to post some in our way for you to reach it. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And go with the gods. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Shamanic Voices. Please like and subscribe so that you won't miss our coming episode, where we always try to have engaging and interesting topics and or guests. Thank you, and go with the gods.